Well, that's a record 8th loss for the Springboks in a calendar year. That's the first time that's happened. And today's victory also ensures that Rob Howley's side wins 3 games in an autumn campaign for the first time since 2002. So what looked like it might be a disastrous end-of-year run for Wales certainly has turned much to the better, Victor. I don't know what else to say about the state of Springbok rugby. We've spoken about it for weeks, months, even years now. I suppose we could see it that the players don't necessarily want to be there. They're probably thinking about going home, ending what's been a really tough tour. And when things go wrong, then your mind does tend to wander. And unfortunately, we saw it in their play.
Yeah, it's difficult to be positive after a season like this. And I think the worst part's probably just after halftime, just after we got that yellow card. You could just see that they were just gone. They were out of it. The shoulders dropped. They weren't in the game. They started making silly mistakes, and yeah, it's just a pity to see that.
It was a pity to see. Nick, your thoughts on that game, following what we saw, I suppose, throughout the season?
Well, it's been a truly dreadful season, and we did say last week after losing to Italy that we had to wait until the end of the tour and the end of the season, take the emotions out of it, and have a good look at how the Springboks have performed. And 4 wins out of 12, they've performed really badly. So we haven't seen much progress. This is the first young team we've picked, and they did make a lot of mistakes. But 11 games, we picked old players who were also making mistakes. We saw no real improvement during the season from game to game. We didn't really see a game strategy that made sense. At one moment, we were talking about playing territory. The next moment, be brave and play what's in front of you. We had an Indaba. We had 2 coaches added to the coaching group. South African rugby is in a dreadful state at the moment, and a lot of thought has to go into our structures. A lot of thought has to go into the way in which we run our competitions, the way we appoint our coaches. And one's got to ask, is there a performance clause in Alistair's contract? Because, as I said before, there are other coaches who've been fired for better results than he's had.
Nick speaks about the fact that it's a young team, and there was a little bit of excitement that a couple of guys now are going to get a chance, but they come into a culture, unfortunately, that's not a winning culture. Nick mentions that we've had another 11 test matches this year. This is the first time we've seen a couple of faces that many thought would maybe squeeze their way into the Bok team a little bit earlier than this. So great that the changes have happened, but under these circumstances, it's going to be a long, hard journey for a lot of the young guys.
Yeah, it's a difficult culture at the moment because, and we've been there. You get 2 weeks like this and you keep telling each other this Saturday, we have to go and fix it. But nobody believes it. And I think that's where they are at the moment. There's no confidence. We saw when we left, when we missed our scrum off at number 9, we suddenly had 14 number 9s. Now, you seriously want to tell me nobody can actually just step up and say, Nick, you just play scrum off for 10 minutes and sort it out. You could see, like Victor also mentioned, it was absolutely chaos for 10 minutes. And, it's been chaos for a long time now. But we've been talking about the coaching. We've been asking questions about the support staff. But I think also tonight we have to be honest and ask some questions about the players. Do we really have the players? We keep telling ourselves we have the players, we have the talent. But if you really look what we've seen throughout the year, to be honest tonight, I don't think we've got world-class players at the moment. The second rowers, Etzebeth and Peter Steff, we're looking at 2. But, when Victor, and it's not long ago he was there, we had 9, 10 world-class players. We spoke about them, really world-class players. We've got to ask the questions. This is a collective unit that needs to take blame for what we've seen in the last 3 weeks. Let's be honest. England was always going to be a tough one, but we played an awful game. Then Italy, I think it was even worse than Japan, to be honest, okay? And what we've seen today, it's new faces, but the culture at the moment is absolutely in the ground. And somebody, and I hope seriously Saru really steps in and fix it, because we need to fix it now. We thought after the Indaba appointing 2 new guys, we're going to fix it, and we said it last week. Never happened. It never happened. We looked at the defence today. We're looking at that last try of Wales. You know, we're doing ball watching. Nobody scans what's in front of them. We've been talking about this the whole season. So somewhere along the line, the coaching staff should sort this nonsense out.
Hold that thought about fixing it, Bobs. I'm going to ask you a question, and Nas, I'd like you to jump in as well after this. We need to fix it, and we can try a couple of practical things. Coaching Indaba, we've tried putting in new coaches, maybe change game plan where we can. The thing that worried me the most about this performance is not necessarily the ability of the players, more so than the mental awareness of the players. The fact that their heads dropped, and you speak about the yellow card, for instance, things changed. The one scrum where they completely gave up, you spoke about it off air. Mentally, they just unfortunately don't seem to be part of this.
Oh, it's been a sad thing. I think we didn't really have an identity as if we have to sit around now and think about what is our leadership group in that side. Who's there? What is that spine that everyone goes back to, where the players have to sit and be honest with themselves, as Nos is mentioning, that the players have to take responsibility. Who are those players who take responsibility? We talked about the time when we were missing a scrum off. New Zealand played with Ben Smith at scrum off because he took control, and he's one of the leadership groups in the New Zealand side. He says, you know what, we're going to do it like this. This is how we're going to go. So none of the players have done that. And then if you look at that, the culture in the team, it's almost everyone has gone into their own shells because now they feel isolated because they're making so much mistakes. And then what has happened is that players are not really picking each other up because now they're thinking, I don't want to make a mistake, I'd rather hide away. Yeah. And then at the end, that fight was lost for me. Yeah. And it was not just lost in the times where we drop our heads down. Yeah. It's lost when we're sitting around and not trying to put up an effort again so that you can add on and put some value into the side. And that is what has been missing the whole season. And you have to ask yourself, where was the leadership fixing it?
Folks, I just think we need someone in South African rugby that comes out and say, listen, this is our vision. I'm in control. I'm taking control of everything. We had an Indaba. We had someone coming in, running the Indaba that's not a coach or involved with SA Rugby. The head coach or the director of rugby should step in there and say, listen, this is how things are going to work. You need to do this, you need to do this, and this is how we're going to go forward. Alistair Coetzee, he talked about body language before the game.
His body language.
Sorry, he must be out. Remember, his players are going to look up to him. He must be confident. He must be bold. We're South Africa. You can't go out there in our shells and excuses. Someone needs to step up, say, listen, we South Africans, this is how we're going to do this. This is our DNA. On and off the field, our culture, everything.
Is it possible, though? Is it possible for Alistair Coetzee to turn around and say, this is what I need in place, and that will follow? Is it possible?
No, I think, I don't know whether it's possible, but there are people who lead and lead inspirationally, and those who don't. And I'll take the example of the England side, and I'll take Lancaster, who's a very decent person, who put structures in place, selected good players, but he couldn't inspire his team to do extraordinary things. And this is what Eddie Jones can do. He comes in, takes the same players, makes a difficult guy captain, changes a little bit of the culture, makes them a bit more edgy, gives them self-belief. They're on a 13-match winning streak.
See, the thing is, you asked the question, can he come in now? I think it's going to be very difficult, to turn it around now. Why I'm saying that is, what we've seen so far, and that's what we can only talk about that, is that, are you seriously going to believe it now? You come now and suddenly for 6 months we've seen this, and now you come and you say, listen, we're going to change that. And I'm going to ask you, why didn't you change it 6 months ago?
Every single week we've heard from the staff. We've had a very positive training week. Every single week. I can't believe how well we've trained this week. There's energy in the team. There's a good positive intent. And it just disappears when that team runs out onto the field.
So do you think we're just not being honest with ourselves?
Well, I don't think it matters that you don't train properly. Or how you train. I think you've got to train properly, but I think you need intensity on the rugby field. And we're seeing nervous players, insecure about themselves, about the game plan, about the positions they're playing in. I mean, this team had a lot of changes, which we've been asking for perhaps a bit earlier on in the season. But they were playing against a Wales side that was desperate for a win as well. And it started off quite encouragingly. But the key to a confident side is a side that when something goes against them, they pull themselves together within themselves because of their leadership, because of what's been given them by their coaching staff, and they pull themselves together and react on the field. this Springbok side is consistently, or especially over the last 6 games, as soon as the tides turned even marginally against them, the heads drop. And you look as though the people, that the players on the field don't know who to turn to.
From the outside, you know, and I've mentioned it on a number of occasions, the thing that actually stands out for me is somewhere along the line, because I look at it as the head coach is in control. But he's in control and he's responsible. But I've got too many question marks about selection. And I think one problem that Alistair really has is he's a poor selector. We're taking a back line. We started off with the back line. We played a fullback, not today, I'm talking throughout. We played a fullback that's not really a number 1 fullback, not a specialist fullback. Then we played a scrum off on the wing. Then we turned the centres, the inside, outside, outside, inside. You know, so out of 7 selections in the back line, we've got 4 question marks. And then we've seen players for a long time not playing well, but they stay in the team. And then we see good players in form, not in the team. And Nick, I've mentioned it to you. And just as an outsider, I look at it and sometimes I question, but, you know, this is not what we see week in and week out. So somewhere he's got the final say. And I've got some question marks, serious question marks about his ability as a selector.
Well, if we come back and also let's step away from what is, you know, a desperately disappointing time for the Springboks. But if we step away and look at the Super Rugby season, apart from the Lions, we can't say that our teams did well. There was a little step up from the Bulls. The Sharks were poor. The Cheetahs were poor. The Kings were dreadful. And the Stormers had an easy pool and then got smashed as soon as they played their first big game against a New Zealand side. So it required... The only team that had any sort of inspiration for South Africa were the Lions. And they did play with confidence and with a smile on their faces every time they went out. Don't forget that quarter-final at Ellis Park, the semi-final at Ellis Park. Yep. Had they perhaps sent a better team to Argentina, we might have even played a final. And who knows, you know, New Zealanders don't like playing at Ellis Park. We might have even won that final. So nothing is completely lost. But you have to have a leadership group that gets your team to enjoy playing, to understand how they're going to play, what style they're going to play, and they must relish it and enjoy it.
Bobs, those things take place in practice. You run your drills, you practice scenarios, or at least you'd hope.
You hope that they practice scenarios. Yeah. Because scenarios that we saw today, I mean, passes that are not going to man, I mean, that accuracy of not doing those things, it just shows you, because you have to have a bit of a standard. You have to have a place where you call it, this is where we are, this is our standards that we set, and if we're not doing it at training, how do we expect to do it during the game when it's high intensity, where it's high pressure?
But is it possible?
Those are the standards are led by who? It's led by the players. It's led by the people who are going to be so proud of the performance on the weekend. So that is where, when we watch it from the outside, we say, how much they actually really put themselves under pressure at training too.
But is it possible, Bobs? Is it possible, and you guys have practiced and trained players at this level, that you can have wonderful practices, that everything goes off swimmingly until you feel like a rabbit in the headlights when the test match comes?
But then you're not supposed to feel like a rabbit in headlights. Correct. If you got your preparation and your plan properly, because you can always go back, because that's your point of reference. That's what you use as your reference. So now that gives you a comfort zone of knowing that this is what we're good at and this is where we can move on from.
Sorry, Vic, if I come in, and I'm going to ask you this question. I think that if everyone is attempting to be a nice guy, to like each other, even on the practice field, a guy makes a bad pass, everyone runs over, don't worry, it'll come right on the Saturday. It doesn't come right on the Saturday. Yeah. You need players in the side to turn to that player and say, get it right. You make that pass, and I want the ball in front of me here. Don't throw it here at your feet, because you'll do it on Saturday. Not, don't worry, it doesn't matter. And you need coaches to say that to players. And you need people, you know, at the players all the time. There must be an edge to every training session and an edge to the team.
Hold the thought, guys. Sorry, Vic.
Yeah, but Nick, just on that as well. It's easy to have a good practice if there's nothing in front of you. So are they being put under pressure? Do they get things where things go wrong, where it's in a hard time? Now they have to react to it. It's easy to put an easy drill out there and you just run through it and it looks good. You need to put be put under pressure, and the coaches must put you under pressure. You must feel, if I'm going to make a mistake, I'm in trouble here. It can't be just easy. We'll go again.
Right.
It's nice. We like each other.
Right, well, let's hear from the Springbok coach. Alistair Coetzee has had a really tough year. He's made apologies to the nation on a couple of occasions, and I just wonder what it is he thinks about this last result.
Well, Alistair, you described the defeat to Italy as the darkest moment of your career. I wonder how you sum up your mood now.
No, it is tough. It is really tough. It's never easy to lose in a Springbok jersey. Definitely not. Players understand it, management understand it, everyone understands that. But this is what the situation is, you know, and hopefully this is the start of a new beginning for South African rugby. And I think this is just a show that we've got to make sure that we do lay the foundation properly, you know, going forward.
Alistair, do you fear, though, that this result might spell the end of your time in charge?
No, well, I don't fear anything, to be honest. I think this has really tested my character. It's tested my faith. It's tested a lot of things, you know. I do feel that collectively we've got to understand it's not just one person that can take responsibility for that. If I'm solely held responsible for that, then I'll walk away. I'm man enough to say that. But there's been a lot of things that that sort of had an effect on the season, and one has got to have a look. We'll have a lot of meetings going forward and discussions, obviously, and a lot of challenges for South African rugby going forward. But I think this has just showed up that we cannot now just plaster over cracks. We've got to fix it from the core.
You're the first coach to be at the helm when a South African side has lost 8 matches in 1 year. Would you consider your position?
Yeah, it is tough. No, definitely tough, and it's not nice. But like I said, this is not the start this year. It's, you know, it's come on for a couple of years now. I mean, we have lost for the first time against the Argentinas back home. We've lost against Japan, and we've lost this year against Italy. So definitely there are fundamental problems that we need to address.
Thank you.
Certainly are issues that need to be addressed. The thing is, they have been addressed, I suppose, when the writing was on the wall. But practically, things have to change. Practically, before the Springboks get together for that 3-test series against the French, something has to change. Is that enough time for a fundamental change, Vic, in our structures and the way we... is there enough time now?
We've said it before as well. We have to go have a look at everything in South African rugby. I think from administration right through, because we're not at a place where we should be in world rugby, but we need someone that can lead that as well. We need someone that can stand up and say, listen, we're going to change this, and we must make sure whoever that is the best guy for that job.
Yeah.
Alistair's also been asked about whether or not he feels the pressure and whether or not he thinks he'll keep the job. He seems quite confident, I suppose.
Listen, I feel dreadfully sorry for Alistair because he's a lovely guy. He really is. Everyone who meets him, I've known him personally, and he's a really decent guy. But you're picked to win games for South Africa.
Yeah.
You know, you're not picked. It's not a popularity contest. You've got to win games. And but he's got a 4-year contract. And why should he resign? He's got a 4-year contract. If he hasn't got a performance clause, then you know, why on earth would he walk away?
No.
So then again, we've got to ask, if he was appointed, why wasn't it just for 2 years? Why wasn't there a performance clause for this year and next year? Because every professional coach gets that. But however, if you appoint him, can you then say it's fair that Saru say to him, you will take our forward coach from Van Graan, who he never met, you know, and we would like you to take Zwandile Stick because we want you to mentor him and he's good for the future of South African rugby. Now, I don't think that's fair. I think if you ask a coach to do a job and you give him a performance clause, then he should be allowed to pick his support staff. And then, you know, then you judge him on his results. But if you're providing support staff that aren't helping him, but he's, you know, I think now what's happened is it just hasn't got better. So there comes a time when you've got to look at we've got to change something. First of all, we've got to change the structure in our South African rugby. There's absolutely no question about that.
Yeah.
You cannot have 14 provinces, with the greatest respect to some of the minor provinces. You know, they just really costing a lot. And probably the cause of a lot of our players going overseas, because we can't pay our players enough, because we're giving minor unions 24, 25 million rand a year to run their unions. So there's so many things that have to be addressed.
And Nas, we still have to wait another year before the structure of Super Rugby changes and we either lose a team or see how the restructure would work. So for next year, our preparation for the international windows later in the year will be very similar to what we had this year.
Yeah, see, we can only go sometimes on reports, and we've read during the week, but, you know, we don't have enough time to prepare whatever. Eddie Jones was still in Cape Town. The next moment he was in England. He's what 13 wins in a row now. So I think we need to stop looking for excuses. We've got major problems and we need to sort the problems out. And last word, I would like to say, don't tell the South Africans when you arrive in South Africa after this tour. Just keep it quiet.
It has been that rough, but a team that's got a lot of reason to celebrate is Ireland. They've beaten Australia 27-24, and with that win, they become the first Northern Hemisphere team to beat New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia in one calendar year. So there's a team that's certainly on the up, and I wonder, guys, does it go down to coaching?
The ranking, the qualifying?
Well, interesting. I think that in the top 5 or 6 teams, there are about 4 New Zealand coaches and 1 Australian coach, Eddie Jones. So, you know, they weren't too shy to get. I do think South Africa is a separate issue, though. I must say that quickly. We have a very difficult situation.
We certainly do. Thank you very much, Bobes, Nas, to you, Nick, and Vic as well. You at home, hard luck to the Springboks. We'll welcome them back home and hope that 2017 is a far better year for them.